It's time. It's time. May I have your attention, please? It's time to tackle some Serral games. Serral is not just your standard common Zerg on the ladder or in tournaments. Serral is a god. He just defeats people constantly. And a lot of people ask the question, well, what makes Serral so good? And no one is able to answer this in a simple sentence. It's more of the big picture of why he is far and away the strongest player right now outside of Korea. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. I'm putting my thinking cap on right here. And we're going to take this through his vision. Through Serral's vision, what is going on here? We're going to go step by step. I'm going to call out anything that seems like a unique decision. To start off, just making some drones. That's nice. But then he stops making drones with one larva. Why is this? Why is this? Is he going for a 16 hatch? Yes, he is. So 16 hatch is a little bit less common than a 17 hatch. Could be for a couple reasons. He could open gasless, and he would have a faster wall off. He may just want more larvae early on. Those are the two options for opening with this particular kind of thing. And he still hasn't taken a gas. Gonna go for a pool. I'm gonna gas. Cool. So nothing too strange just yet. He's gonna keep droning up. This second Overlord he's keeping in the area where he could see Marines and SCVs coming up for a proxy barracks bunker build. He's droning, filling his gas. He's not in a hurry to get 3 out of 3. Just kind of rallying some stuff in. Trying to get full value from that one base minimum saturation for the minerals. Then a 19 Overlord. Really active with this Overlord. Wanting to know what's up. Queen. Queen and forlings. Cool. With the 20 drone. He's sending a worker now. And then pulling 2 off gas and taking link speed. Pulling 2 off gas gives him a little bit more of a mineral boost. He's thinking about the economy race with the opponent. Terran has mules, so Zerg pulling off gas a little bit gives you a little bit more power, macroing up. He's not chasing the Reaper. He respects Kelazhur's ability to not lose that off creep. That's an interesting choice. That didn't work out. So he tried to go for a creep tumor there. Kelazhur is quite good with his Reaper. I think relative to most tournament Terrans, he's going to be above average. He did the 3 racks Reaper build for a while. So just his attention and awareness with how to use the Reaper in the sense of timing. So the inject would have been the safer choice there. The creep tumor was the greedy choice. He has a 3rd queen on the way. He has that Overlord that's scouted. Looks like Kelazhur went for Cyclones there. I don't think he saw that. He saw the factory reactor, but not specifically that it was Cyclones. He's still droning up. He's only made those 4 lings. Okay, he just saw the Cyclone. So he sees the Cyclone. He's making more queen. Getting an Evo. Actually, that's a Roachworn. And making lings. So it's lings and queens to defend this initial attack. Looks like Kelazhur does have an armory. Serral doesn't know that, but it's definitely within the range of possibility. So some lings looking for some reinforcement units maybe. Queens are trying to push this back. He doesn't really want to trade with the lings until he's fully committed to it. So this attack from Kelazhur isn't that many units. So he's just making Queen Ling to defend it. 12 more Lings in the production tab. Notice he's made no roaches. Just all zerglings. So where does this gas go? Now he's making roaches. Okay. So by virtue of seeing that attack, he knows where a lot of Kelazhur's gas has been going. He might even be making the inference that there's not going to be cloak for a while, because the cyclones cost quite a bit of gas, the armory costs gas. It was a pretty committed attack. It didn't really do too much. It didn't kill the third base. It softened it up a little bit. But he's still getting full value from the larva of that location. So now it looks like he's just turning up the aggression at 33 workers, so he's all-inning him, basically. So he's trying to punish this transition. Kelazhur's doing into 3 bases with the upgrade. Nice. So it's just enough Ling Roach that that attack can't really push in and kill him, and then the roaches are attacking. And you can see on the command card that he has, or sorry, the control group area, he has 8 roaches on a key, and then he had the Ling Roach on a different key. It makes managing those units fast a little bit easier. And if he can get on top of this production, that's a win. It's a win condition against Terran. This is the throat. They really need to hold on to that production area, because now he can just kill the units as they're coming out. He's still making Lings too. So this isn't even just like a pressure timing. He's really all-inning him. Sweet. I think Kelazhur's dead. Yep, having to pull the workers. More Lings. There is a lair on the way, but he's not droning. Cool. That's one game. Serral defending some aggression in an efficient way, and then just dumping all of his value into a big Roachling all-in. Queen Ling is good for a basic kind of defense. So it's interesting kind of thinking through that match about whether you choose to macro up and drone or if you choose to become the aggressor. And I think one of the influencing factors there was that Kelazhur traded out all of his units. That's kind of how a lot of Cyclone attacks work, where if you don't kill the Zerg and all their units and the base, then the Zerg will be killing all of your stuff, and you're kind of back to square one in terms of building up your value. And Cyclone pushes tend to have kind of a critical mass element to them. So if you lost the original 2 Cyclones, then your next group of units is going to be pretty weak. And Serral was making units with fairly few drones, but he had 3 hatches injected, which means he has the edge of larva. You can just pump out tons of Lings. Cyclones are bad against Lings. There were Hellbats, but the roaches were able to create a big enough problem for those. So this game, 16-bit is a much bigger map. It's easier to defend. He's doing that same thing of using the Overlord to scout at the natural. Pretty cool. Making sure there's no proxy with the SCVs. SCVs and Marines and whatnot. Nathanius, thank you very much, my friend. It's good seeing you at the event Twitch party. We're going over Serral versus Kelazhur now, trying to answer that elusive question of what makes Serral so gosh dang good. The first game we saw him defend the initial aggression with just mineral units, and he had a bunch of gas in the bank, and he had a decision to just attack and all in or to defend, and he chose to all in. So same opening here for the most part. 2 queens, 4 lings. So 1 queen is managing the high ground area, the other queen is guarding the natural. He doesn't take Overlord speed early on, as far as I've seen. But he is active with that first Overlord, kind of getting a sense of what the production looks like. The second Overlord is going around on the kind of northwest side of the map. So he did a better job of defending the creep tumor this time. It was also a little bit further back. Last game he had it right at the edge of the creep. Making an Overlord, 2 more drones, bit of a supply block. It's not the worst though, he got to spend his money taking a lair. Lair I think is a really smart investment, especially on this map, because this is one of the, it might be the best range liberator map in the game. And if you're really far from a lair, oh, what do you know? Fusion core. What do you know? Could be a battle bruiser. Could be range lib. Double Widow meme. He's filling the gases. So he does have that 3rd base, but he's going for kind of a 2 base mineral, 3 gas setup. A little bit earlier. Much earlier gases than the previous game for sure. So same thing here, we're seeing him deal with this initial pressure with just pure mineral units with the queens and lings. That opens up a lot of options for... Oh god, is he nidusing? Wow. Yep, that's one of the nice things if you have a bunch of queens. With the Widow Mines, he knows where the first cycle of factory reactor units went. A situation where Nidus would be bad would be one where there's just cyclones in the base. If Terran made 2 cyclones and then more cyclones, this type of attack I think would be really bad. But in this case, he cleaned up a Widow Mine drop that did almost nothing, and he sees Heli and Medivac as a follow-up. So this, I might say, is the type of Roach Queen Nidus that is done reactively, like based on what happened earlier, as opposed to at the start of the match. It's not really clear that he decided to go for a Nidus play. This seems more like a response. And then he just Niduses directly onto the production here. So this is basically capitalizing on a really flimsy opening with the multiple Widow Mine drops. The units involved in a Widow Mine drop can't really do much about this at all. These are just really thick, sturdy units. Now they can kill drones, but Roach Queen Nidus doesn't really take that much economy. Yep, Kelazhur's dead. The production is gone. Doesn't matter that he has the 3rd and stuff. SG. He's trying to do his best to fight it out. Yeah, we've seen the Widow Mine drop work in some games. Kelazhur played against Showtime, and he did 2 Widow Mine drops at once. And the first one was shut down really well, and the second one just completely put Kelazhur super ahead. So this game, he just shut down the initial attack really well with some nice drone splitting and micro of his queens and lings. And then just jumping directly onto the opponent's production as a response. It doesn't really take that long to get the Nidus network going. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to Serral versus Kelazhur, Game 3. No spoilerino. Okay, I'm gonna spoilerino. There were a ton of 3-0s in DreamHack Austin, just a bunch of really one-sided series. This is one of them. This is game 3. I think this was a best of 5. And Serral wins all of the games. All of them's games. Queens. Ling speed, pulling 2 off gas. So same opening as we saw before. Just giving him a little bit of extra mineral income to make those queens and lings for the early defense. It seems like he tries this creep tumor at the edge quite a bit. Since he got the Reaper, I would say that's fine. Like, it ends up being better for him. But it does get shot sometimes. It's a bit risky. So we see Hellions coming out. We're taking Serral's vision. I guess he's just scouting with these lings. Seems like kind of a questionable decision to send them before ling speed. So he has to make some more lings now. You want to have some lings behind the queens to prevent the Hellions from YOLOing in and killing all your drones of the natural. He's being active with that forward overlord, trying to see what's going on. Okay, Viking. More queens. The scout didn't really tell him too much. Did he see starport? Yeah. Yeah, it's not a super informative scout. That's kind of the point of Viking though, right? The Viking opening denies information. It can be used for an attack later on. Forces the Zerg to pull their overlords back. So he's going Roach Warren here. And a lair. We've seen fast lair in a lot of these games. It seems like when he's up against Hellions with starport, or even really any factory reactor build, he's going for lair and a Roach Warren. He doesn't necessarily rush out roaches, but he does get the Roach Warren for the option. Pulling the drones back. This is a mistake that I make a lot, that he's not making, which is having some defensive queens, but not compromising keeping the queen in the main to defend against Liberator, defend against Banshee, and inject. Sometimes I'll get lazy and just pull all the queens and have them forward. He's just droning really hard, making 4 roaches. 4 to 5 roaches is a pretty standard amount to be safe against a lot of different kinds of aggression. Ooh, he's sending his lings around. So that coincided with the roaches coming out, right? Because once he had some new dedicated defensive units, the lings changed to offensive units. They didn't really get much work done, but there is a little bit of value in pulling the opponent's tension back to their side of the map. Just kind of making them uneasy so they don't feel as comfortable and safe to expand and do stuff. He made a ton of overlords. So a whole bunch of overlords at around 60. He knows that Kelazhur has a 3rd command center, but he hasn't been mining off 3 bases yet, but Serral has. So he's trying to get a bunch of units with a 3-base mineral economy with like 4 gas. Because with the current game state, Serral should be able to get maxed way faster than Kelazhur. The early Hellion stuff got no work done, and Serral hasn't really made any major mistakes. If you think about it, if you assume equal skill between Zerg and Terran, Zerg should get 200 supply faster if both players play perfectly, but that 200 supply is going to have lower quality units than your average Terran max out. That's kind of the thing with Zerg. It's swarmy. The units are bad, but they're fast and they're built quickly. So roaches, just a little 7 or 8 roach run by, and then some roaches over here. So this attack was like, what, 150 or so supply? And this is before there were any siege tanks out. Hydra production. Carapace is about to finish. He could go 2-2, or he could just keep massing 1-1 Roach Hydra. This offensive stuff with the roaches keeps him a lot safer on his side of the map too. Because Terran has to use the Hellions and stuff to defend. And Cyclones. 4th base. Has the gases. 5th base going. So his plan A here is a 1-1 Roach Hydra Ravager kind of pressure. But he's not committed to it because he has a 5th base on the way and gases at the 4th base. Talk about this sometimes, but the idea of having a plan A and a plan B is really important. Where your plan A is kind of what your current force is trying to accomplish, and then your plan B is what's cooking up on your side of the map as the next step. Because a lot of the time, your main attack doesn't just outright kill him if your opponent is kind of close to your skill and it wasn't a really lopsided early game. You really want to make sure you know what's coming up next. If this doesn't work, I've got 2-2 and a hive. And a huge doom drop. Wow, look at that doom drop. So he has the drop overlords on a hotkey. He has the army on a hotkey. And this is forcing the mech player to do what they don't want to do, which is divide their forces, which are slow. And they have really good synergy together, but these small forces, like, it's almost like he has a third of his army on the left, a third of his army in the main, and then a third on the bottom. It's not precisely those amounts, but each of these groups is really dangerous. And he has each of them on different control groups, which is fantastic. So he bound those units in the drop with the Overlord drop hotkey. And he just took a super favorable trade with that triple prong attack. This was before 2-2 finished. But since he's making Roach Hydra, he wants to trade really aggressively. And the drop and the multi-prong was basically just a mechanism by which he could take that really efficient trade. Because if he funnels all of his stuff into like 1 or 2 chokes, he wants to check with the Overseer. Make sure there's not a Viking that's going to kill all those. Thor drop coming. It's dropping. Sweet. He's not really tunnel visioning any of these groups. He's just kind of checking to see if they're winning or losing their fight and then moving them if they're losing. And he's kind of just grabbing whatever is available. A lot of people ask about, oh, well, should you focus this target or that target? When you're doing this kind of multi-prong aggression with a lot of different stuff, usually you're just trying to grab the low-hanging fruit, whatever is immediately available, as opposed to finding the most desirable of all targets and like diving that super hard. Kelazhur is super dead from here. He lives for like another 4 minutes, but Serral's got 3-3 going. He has Vipers coming. Greater Spire is finishing. His 6th base is up. It's not mining too much. But Kelazhur just has 3 bases. And he's making some mech units. So he defends as best he can, but I feel like for most intents and purposes, Serral has already won the game. You wouldn't really say has won the game, I think there's a bad habit in the community for people saying that when they get into a position like this. And a lot of times you'll lose because you get into a good position like this to the point where you don't think about having a plan B, and you don't macro as well as Serral does. Because Serral's a better player overall than Kelazhur, so for Kelazhur to win requires Serral to make a bunch of uncharacteristic mistakes. He's doing a Spore trick for some Broodlords, so we can get a Supermax. The Supermax. You're saying Kelazhur crumbles on a multi-front battle. The fun thing about this, and the thing that's really important to point out, is the speed at which all of these steps are happening. The multitasking, the decision-making, and the on-the-fly micro-adjustment is going to be drastically different for Serral than it is for, say, example, me. If I were to try that same approach against Terran, everything would be slower. Serral is a better player. His fundamentals are a lot stronger, and he's just going to be doing everything a lot more quickly because he's done it many times, and he has that level of polish in his play. So cool, that was Serral versus Kelazhur. So some of the themes we can point out. Almost every game, maybe it was every game, he pulled 2 workers off gas after ling speed, and he used queens and lings to defend early attacks. Kelazhur went for factory reactor every time, and Serral's response to that is Lair and Roach Warren. And it was kind of a situation of get ahead, stay ahead, and then use whatever units you have in some cool strike teams that are really mobile on the map. He didn't really have a super set pattern that he was following. It was based on the mistakes that the opponent would make or the commitments that the opponent would make, and how to capitalize on those. So like the Catalyst map, because Kelazhur traded out everything and Serral had a whole bunch of larvae but not many drones, he all-in'd to punish the transition. And then in the other games, it was just having super clean defense of Kelazhur's first harassment piece to the point where he could either drone up and tech really fast, or in the 16-bit game just Roach Queen Nidus and kill him. On Saturdays, do you do analysis for the other races? Yes, I do.